the way you feel when you see a painting is based on the artist's all the colors and the energy and the lines, and how you feel in a space is based on how we're designing it. And actually, it was my mother who said, you know, there's a job where you get to design the outdoors. And so I realized there was a job called landscape architecture. I sent my resume out to a couple design firms here when we moved here, and they were like, no, we're not hiring. But that no ended up turning out to be a huge blessing.
Hello, this is Design Minded. I'm Tifa, and today I'm having Pierce Butcher, a landscape designer specialized in residential projects. Hello, Pierce. Thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So, first of all, I want to know why was you motivated in the first place to be a landscape designer?
So I headed to college and I did not know what I wanted to do. I knew where I wanted to be. I picked a part of the country, I'm here in the United States, that I thought was beautiful and I was familiar with. It was about 4 hours away from where I had grown up. But I had spent summers in near the mountains. And so I headed that way. And I kind of as a default, I decided to be an art major because I'd always enjoyed art. I wasn't great at it and I wasn't that passionate about it, but it was something that um, I enjoyed doing it, but I couldn't really, I didn't know if I could see myself doing it forever as a career, but there's something else I was that passionate about. So I decided to be a studio art major. And I also loved being outside. I loved being outdoors my whole life. I spent summers in the mountains, hiking, camping, going to a summer camp. Um, and then actually, it was my mother who said, you know, there's a job where you get to design the outdoors. And so I realized there was a job called landscape architecture. And I had actually my other school that was on my list was Georgia Tech in Atlanta, because I thought about being an architect. But I am not an engineer, and that is not how my brain works. And so I chickened out going to Georgia Tech because I decided if I did not like architecture, there's nothing else there that would have suited my career path. So I did not go to Georgia Tech. I ended up at Furman University. And so I could have transferred at that point once I realized landscape architecture was a job, but I decided to kind of mold this double major where I kept my studio art degree and then I added a second major in environmental science. And then I did an internship with a landscape design firm after my junior year of college up in Washington, D.C. And I really loved it. I loved the that it kind of blends all of those things together where you get to do art and science and problem solving and it's different every day. Every project is different. Your clients are different. And so I kept going on that path. I graduated college with those two kind of this molded double major. And then got my graduate certificate of landscape design from George Washington University in Washington, D.C., which sadly they don't even have this program anymore, but it was focused on residential design. And so I was working for the same firm and I went to school in the evenings got this graduate certificate, and I've been kind of doing it on and off ever since.
Awesome. And you started working for different design offices in the beginning, and after this, you decided to establish your own firm. So, how did this happen? Like, this is a major decision, right? Can you tell about it more, please?
It was partly just stage of life. I also got married very quickly after college. I had met my husband while we were in school together, and when I finished my graduate certificate, we decided to leave DC and move to Arkansas for his so he could finish his master's degree. And then we also decided to start a family. So I was young and I was very naive. I thought, oh, no problem. I'll have this baby and they'll just sit beside me and I'll just be able to draft all I want and still get work done. And that is not how my babies work at all. They are very needy. So I quit working for that firm partly because we were moving for my husband's job. But once I had another kid 2 years later, but then I would get in contact with firms in wherever we were living and just ask them if they needed a freelance designer. And a lot of them were very excited to find somebody who would be willing to do that for them, that they could just outsource that. And then I would kind of put feelers out. I would do it for just directly for homeowners, or I would do it for landscape design build firms. And so we moved around the country a few more times for my husband's job, and then we settled here in Greenville, South Carolina. And again, I have now, in that point I had 3 kids, and so it was more just stage of life, but I'm so glad it worked out. I actually applied for, or I sent my resume out to a couple design firms here when we moved here, and they were like, no, we're not hiring. But that no ended up turning out to be a huge blessing because I love running my own business. It gives me so much flexibility. I can take on as much or as little work as I want. Um, and yeah, so that's it, kind of by default that I chose to own my own business, but I'm really glad I did.
That's awesome. And what about your design philosophy? I mean, at least for architecture, each office has a design philosophy. I think it works at the same in landscape architecture or design. So or how would you describe your design philosophy and how does it reflect on your projects?
Um, So I appreciate the fact that I actually have that art background. I think that that gives me a different perspective in looking at all of these projects. A lot of landscape designers, maybe they were a really great gardener and decided they wanted to learn landscape design, or they were a landscape contractor. They were installing these jobs from other designers and they decided they wanted to design. And none of those are the wrong path or a bad path. However, like my perspective comes at it is I actually loved art and I loved science and design. And then I decided to love plants at the same time. I decided to learn plants and how to apply those ideas to the outdoors. So my analogy is thinking about um, a beautiful work of art and the composition of that and how that artist will draw your eye in at a specific point in that painting because of the way they have laid out that painting, because of the light and the shadow and the lines, and how the composition of that painting draws you through, and the energy of it. And I think of that when we're designing these landscapes as what we're doing is drawing people into this space physically, literally drawing that, like they're walking through these spaces because of how we've designed it. And the way they feel, the way you feel when you see a painting is based on the artist's all the colors and the energy and the lines, and how you feel in a space is based on how we're designing it, what the hardscape is underneath you, the plants around you. Does it feel cozy? Is it a nice little cozy space? Is it wide open? Does it feel just perfect where you have it's this very perfect outdoor room where it's the space is laid out well and you have a beautiful view here and you've blocked a view here, and the thinking of almost like a three-dimensional work of art with texture and sound and scent, and so that my philosophy is truly thinking about how can I apply those basic principles of art, order, balance, repetition, symmetry, to the outdoors. So applying that, pulling on my art background and applying that to landscape design.
One of the things I always wonder in landscape design that you are not working as architects in with like static materials. You're working with living organisma or like living creatures, and they are not, static. They change, they are dynamic over the times of the year, day and night, and the climates and so on. So I wonder how would you do the site analysis? How would you consider the geography, the climate, so that you can create a successful design, not only in terms of aesthetics, but in terms of functionality and how you deal with these living creatures. Because, in architecture, we live with materials like concrete and steel and so on, but yours is totally different. So I'm curious about this point.
Mhm. So site analysis is just where that's my second step in the process. So the first step in my design process is just meeting with the client
Mhm.
and listening to them and walking through the space with them to hear their vision, how they want to use the space, learning about their family, and then also like observing everything in their yard. And then I'll send them a design fee proposal, and then we do the site analysis. And I will say, it's probably the least fun part. It's tedious. It's sometimes it's really hot, sometimes it's really cold. It can be really buggy. We've seen snakes, but like you said, it's so important to really understand um, the topography, to understand how water is moving through that space, to understand the sun, different parts of the day, to understand noise levels. Like, do we have a barking dog here? Do we have road noise over here? Is there a neighbor here that's looking down on us that feels uncomfortable that we need to either move a seating area away from that or screen that view? And so it usually takes me 2 hours or so to really spend time in that space, to take lots of notes, lots of measurements, lots of pictures, videos. Sometimes like I'll have an app on my phone that just does like a 3D scan of the space so I can go back and kind of manipulate it and look at it later to, again, to help really understand it. And so that's what I'm observing and taking notes on is water in the space, sunlight, even airflow. If we're up on a mountain and there's some, strong north winds that are going to be affecting the plants in that space, or if there's a strong north wind where we're not going to put a seating area that way because it would be an uncomfortable space to sit because of that. So um, that and to answer your question about the like different times of year, um, sometimes if we're doing it in the winter, we'll have to say, hey, we might need to reevaluate this space in the spring and summer so we don't miss something. So some things might be dormant, your perennials might be still in the ground and haven't even come up yet. And I don't want to put something there that um that that we want to get rid of something that you love. So lots of notes, lots of pictures, lots of time in that space to try to really understand um, what it feels like and how people want to use it, and then how we can best create those outdoor rooms. And I tell people sometimes people will ask me to design remotely, and I tell them I can put pen to paper and put ideas out, but I can't truly understand your space and understand the best way to use it unless I can spend time in it, unless I can walk through your yard and understand everything we talked about. So unfortunately or fortunately, I work best when I can take the time to walk through their yard and do that site analysis.
That's an interesting point, actually, because I was thinking a lot of architecture students, for example, they deal with some rendering programs such as Lumion or Inkscape, this kind of, easy rendering things. And when we decide to put trees or plants, we just choose randomly the good-looking one. But I believe with landscape architects or with the designers, it's a bit more complicated than this, right? You just don't choose the good-looking one, but you have some other criteria. So how would you choose the right plants for your site?
So after we've done that site analysis and after we've done a good base plan and I've created all those outdoor rooms, say they want a pool and a pool house with an outdoor kitchen and maybe it doesn't have to be that complicated. Maybe they just want a deck and a place to sit and have coffee in the mornings.
Mm,
And then I create and maybe a lawn to play. Like I'm in the US, we have, fairly big lots for people to put their houses on, and I'm not in a city. I'm in a smaller city with lots of suburbs and lots of traditional yards. So we'll have, yard space for the kids and dogs to play, and then I'll draw in the bed lines. And then I start thinking, I go back to those principles of art. And at first, I'm not picking out specific plants, I'm picking out like shapes. I'm thinking, okay, like that neighbor right there that we saw that was looking down in the yard. I need to put something tall and pyramidal in that space. And then in front of it, I want something kind of more like open and flowering. And then in front of that, I want maybe something taller that's a little neater. And then maybe in the front, we want something like very round on the corners, and we want something tall and skinny here. So I'm thinking of these plants as forms. I'm thinking I want like something tall and fluffy. I want something really small and tight. I want something very upright here, or I need something low and wide under the windows. So I'm thinking as almost like a sculptor. I'm thinking in size, shape, form, texture. in these plants. So I place all those plants around the yard like that. And I've kind of been thinking through how they're all going to complement each other. Like I want something, if I have something really neat and tidy with little thin needles, maybe I want something more open with big bold texture beside it to complement each other. So then, okay, so I put all those ideas are down. And then I think back to when it's time to label these plants and choose them, I think, okay, so this spot was full sun and it was really dry and I needed something tall and pyramidal. So I maybe now have like four choices. So it needs full sun. I want it with needles and I need it to be this shape and it has dry soil. And so then I go back to my local nursery's monthly inventory list and I see what they have available. And at that point, I have like four choices. Or I'll go in that front foundation. Okay, I needed something wide and low, and it's shady, and I don't want it to be flowering. So again,
Mhm.
at that point, I probably have like three choices. So I kind of it's almost like uh um I forgot what my word for the analogy was, but it's like narrowing it down. And once you pick the type of plant and the shape and the texture, then and what the environment is there, then you narrow it down and it's not quite so complicated.
So you have
But
this systematic and logical workflow while choosing the plants. And apparently, like this job includes a lot of problem solving, right? So can you share with us some of the challenges that you face during your projects or even with working with clients?
um I I truly love that part. Like really my favorite thing is to think outside the box and have big ideas and kind of be the person who's like taking it all in and listening to what the client's saying and hearing what the issues are and looking um at what our site looks like and then and throwing all these big ideas at the wall. And my absolute favorite thing is when we'll be at a meeting and the contractor will be there, maybe the architect if we're building a new house, the builder, the homeowners, and I'll say, what if we do this? If we drop the grade here and put a retaining wall here and move this here, and just what if we do that and we'd solve the problem that way? And my favorite thing is when people will go, that is a great idea. I never would have thought about that. Like that's, I feel like the gift that I bring is that I a little quirky. I think outside the box and I like to have big ideas and just see what works. And a lot of times they won't work. Like, oh, that's a good idea, but we can't do this because of this. And I'm like, okay, let's think about another one. So I think one of my most fun um, projects like that where it was this older house and the yard was really sloped, like if the house was this way it was sloped this way, like the street itself in front of the house was really steep, and so like they had a porch but then the driveway was like here and then it was a weird retaining wall, and then they had to like go to their driveway and step down like to go into their house, and it was just weird. And so again I was like, what if we like drop the entire level of the driveway and move that retaining wall back to the back of the yard? And then it opens up the space here and this connectivity between this and this is better. And your sight lines it feels more open. And my contractor was like, sure, I'll do it. I love that idea. He had to call the city and move a telephone pole in order to make this work because there was a telephone pole on the level of where the existing driveway was, and we were dropping the whole driveway down and regrading the whole thing. So that one, I was really proud of that one because I loved, and that's one of my favorite contractors too. When he can hear my ideas and he's like, "Yes, Pierce, I can build that for you." So that was a fun one where we again thought outside the box and came up with a solution to move a telephone pole to make their space more functional.
So what are your key strategies for this clear and friendly communication with the clients? Because it seems like you have this vibrant relationship with the clients. So can you share with us what are the strategies that you are doing to achieve this?
Well, people will reach out to me and say, hey, I have a project. Can we meet together? So our first step is to set up that. Usually if they call me, I said, I'll listen to them and I say, all right, will you please text me your name and address and email address, and we'll text back some dates where we can meet. So I like to keep things on, if possible, on text message or email, and then obviously meeting on site too, because then I can make sure that I'm not mishearing anything that they say, and then I have it in my phone and I can easily set up my appointments because I'm seeing exactly all their information in front of me. And I also tell them like once I've sent them, okay, let's back up. So we have that first consultation, and then I email them a design fee proposal so that they can look over it together. If it's a husband and wife, then they can look over it together and decide if they want to hire me. And then if they say yes, then they just email me back. I say email me back with approval of this design fee, and then I'll put you on my schedule. So then I text them the week before, email them the week before, either one, say, all right, it's your turn, you're on my schedule, I'm gonna come out and do the site analysis. You don't have to be there. So I do that site analysis, and then if it's anytime that week, I will measure, and then I tell them that next Friday of the next week, I will email you your first draft of your first concept, your first draft of your design. So I'll email that to them, at least let them look over it, get some initial feedback. If they're like, oh no, we need the pool bigger, or no, I wanted that patio moved over here. So I can at least make those initial adjustments. Or if they're like, I love it, let's talk about it. So then I'll set up a meeting with them and we'll go back to their site, sometimes with the contractor at this point. So they can just, I'll kind of choose from my list of contractors that I have relationships with, who would be a good fit for that project. And then we'll meet there, and then the contractor can help answer construction questions. So I say, I'd love to have a contractor meet with us. So maybe he or she could answer questions about the construction side that I may have missed during the design side. And then also throw out some general numbers too. If they're like, okay, we want a fireplace with our patio, and we want it to be covered, what's a general range? Are we even in the ballpark of what they want to spend on this project? So we have that meeting, and then I go back to my studio and I kind of make those final adjustments, the edits, and then I will deliver them a digital copy and a hard copy of everything. And if we need to meet with another contractor again, um, I'm welcome to that. But I like to, and I also tell them they have my phone number. They're welcome to, when I'm designing, to text me as little or as much inspiration as they want. If they're on a walk and they see a plant that they love, should send me a picture. I'm happy for them to. I would rather be more communicative and be open to any sorts of feedback than closed off. So during the design process, they're welcome to text me anytime they want or email me.
That's great. So, another thing that I noticed that you have really active work life, but you also have a family. So, how will you keep the balance between the professional and personal life?
Great question. And it's summer. And so that is a good question because it is Saturday morning at 6:30 in the morning, and we're doing this because everyone is asleep in my house. Um, but I think that's partly why I do enjoy running my own business, is because it gives me the flexibility. I do like to get up early, and so to get my work done and also be able to have flexibility in the afternoons during the school year, then I like to get up early, get some work done before everybody's awake, and then work until I pick up kids from school, and then I can be there in the afternoons for them. And that, again, that's just the beauty of running your own business, because I can just say, sure, I'll take that kid to the dentist, or I can run and, I can go see their play at school at 10 a.m. because I can easily just make my own schedule and be very flexible that way. And summer is definitely challenging, but my kids are older. My youngest is 9 years old now. So every year my life gets a little bit easier having three kids. Um, so it's trying to balance how much work I take on, and just being honest with my clients. I try to take on one new client a week, and so that I'm not like overwhelming myself. So I'll start one project a week, and then I'll have others like in the different queue, in the different stages in that process. And so I just I try to not take on too much work, and then give myself the flexibility to have a life outside of my job too. But it's a lot of people say that they would not like working from home because you're so distracted, but I don't mind the distractions. I feel like if I get stuck in a creative flow, I can just hop up and switch the laundry, or I can take the dog for a walk, or I enjoy the fact that I can get those little things done in the house that need to be done during the day, and I don't have to come home from an office and then be like, okay, now I have to do like everything. Like I'll like plan a menu and order groceries while I'm like working, and then my groceries will be delivered, put them all away, and then I sit back down at my desk and work, and then know that, and I don't have to like quit work, go to the grocery store, come home. Anyway, it works. I enjoy it.
Awesome. Okay, lastly, I want to ask your advice for young students who want to pursue their career as landscape designers, or for those who already graduated and want to start their career already, or for those who are thinking of landscape design as a major. What would you advise these people?
I would say spend time outside. Go to public parks. Go and observe how people are using that space. Like go to, it could even be like a plaza in the city, or go like to a or to a botanical garden, or and just sit there and watch how people are moving through the space. Watch, notice where they sit and rest, and try to figure out why are they sitting there, like instead of why is that bench being chosen over this one. How do you feel when you're walking through that space? Is it too narrow? Does it feel congested, or is it very open, and it feels, the connectivity between those spaces feels very generous? How does it feel when you're walking up and down steps? What is the rise and the run of those steps? And how does that feel differently when you're walking up and down them? And what's the width of those steps? Like that truly is such an interesting observation anywhere you go, is to notice the dimensions of steps, of retaining walls, of seats, of benches, and just to start to make all those mental notes of how can you design a space that feels welcoming and comfortable. And then and obviously the plant material too, like why, like uh, I want every garden to be a sensory garden. I want to walk through it and just like run my hands through things. And so I love to notice when it's designed thoughtfully with all those the complementary textures and colors and heights, and that you just want to go and like grab a pinch of lavender and smell it and run your hands through the ornamental grasses. And um, interestingly, that my favorite public garden here in Greenville is at the airport. They actually have an outside park at our little airport that is so beautiful. It's perfect axial symmetry, and it has four fountains and little benches, and it's uh I wish I could show you a picture of it right now, but every time I fly in and out, I go and sit in that garden because it was designed very thoughtfully, and I appreciate how they organize that space. And it's just perfect for travelers to sit and gather and rest and eat. And I would say just spend time in public spaces and take lots of notes and sketches and observe why and how people use that space.
Right. I would like also to mention for our audience now that Pierce has a great course on teaching landscape. So I will leave the link in the description. Please check it out. It's very useful. Thank you, Pierce, so much for your time and for accepting our invitation. And thank you all for watching this podcast and see you in the next episode. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.